We saw last time that Job was just about melting, wasn't he? He decided he would give in to the arguments of the friends. What did he say about his integrity? And question number 3. We saw that in verse 5. Of course, he's holding up his integrity with this parable. And in verse 5, he says, "Far be it from me that I should justify you." That's pretty straightforward. "Till I die, I will not put away mine integrity from me." Great passage. Confidence during suffering. And yet he didn't have the right concept of God, of what God was doing. And he had the right concept of God, but what God was doing in his life. So he's going to hold to his integrity as long as he lived. And then the last one we talked about, the issues warning of his friends. What do you see in that chapter that will be set forth? Well, here's a warning for my so-called friends. What does verse 7 say? "Let mine enemy be as the what? Be as the wicked, and let him that riseth up against me be as the unrighteous." So that's there. And you want to talk about his children? If his children, verse 14, be multiplied, it's for the sword. They're not going to, helps they don't profit. Here's the death of the sword, and his offspring shall not be satisfied with bread. A lot of times they may plant the barley and the wheat, but they're not going to eat the bread. Enemies will come, the sword, they'll be destroyed, and other peoples will take them. Just like Chaldeans and those people took my family away. Job is just saying that that's being stored for the wicked, and that's going to be my friends. If you're going to side on the side that says that Job was suffering because of his sin. So he's defiant. He's setting forth his own integrity. But if you're going to be an enemy of him, this is the event that's going to take place. Then Job, in verses 13 following, this is the portion of a wicked man with God. Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, they've had their speech about wicked men. I think he's had it. I'll tell you about wicked men too. And they're in agreement. Wicked men are going to be destroyed. Job just added, sometimes they're not destroyed till they're rich and they're doing all sorts of bad things and they still live. What about that one? Well, so this point doesn't answer them. He's got his idea about the wicked as well. This is the portion of the wicked men with God, and the heritage of oppressors which they receive from the Almighty. His children be multiplied as for the sword. We just talked about that when they become their enemy. Verse 16, though he heap up silver as the dust, and prepare raiment as the clay, he may prepare it but for the just shall put it on, and the innocent shall divide the silver. Verse 22, God shall hurl at him and not spare. He would fain flee out of his head. He couldn't get away from him. Men shall clap their hands at him. And this idea, I don't believe you. You're nothing, God, and nothing about his servant, and shall hiss him out of his place. So he's going to take them. He'll take them down. He will destroy them. Okay, we've got that. And Job's had his peace. Remember this, with this chapter, verse 31 ends, and this is Job. He did not speak anymore to his friends. He has sessions with God. So he's holding to his integrity till he dies. He speaks about the enemies. If you're going to be against me, the enemies will be, you'll be just like the wicked, and here's what the wicked do. So we enter into chapter 28. We say, how elusive is wisdom? And it is interesting when you just when you look at these first 11 verses. What picture comes to your mind that the poet is writing? It's in poetic form, but there's a reality behind it. What picture do you get of what's taking place there? Yeah. That's right. And I'm just infatuated with the idea of the mining business. I thought that started in the California gold rush. But no, it's history. You've got the gold, the silver, the copper, the onyx stones. You've got the sapphire. He hits all of those and you're dropping down and finding you're sinking down into these shafts where men are hanging over the side of the cliff in danger as they mine that metal and that silver and all that gold that's out of there. They stop up the rivers from going into those mine shafts so they can keep them dry, so they can sink down and get the gold and silver and all of the precious stones out of that. It's just a mining business. Why is he doing that? It's because they spend a lot of their time and efforts in going after silver. That becomes very important to them. And in the midst of this, in verse 4, he breaketh the shaft down and so forth, to show how they're looking. What is a falcon eye like? Look at what he says in verse 7. They go to a place like the path no bird of prey knoweth, neither hath the falcon's eye seen it. Is that a pretty good statement? If a falcon eye can't see it, you get the feeling, the picture, what he's trying to get you to feel? Because they're people of prey. I watch hawks out here. A lot of times I'm looking out the window and thinking about God. I see birds of prey, and they're looking down there at Joel's field that he looks at sometime. And there's a sense of he's looking for something, and they'll go after it. They got a keen eye. Well, that's this. The men have a keen eye. They'll go to dark places to find things, and they shall put themselves in danger in order to mine the things that they want. He cutteth channels in verse 10 among the rocks, as I seeth very precious things. He bindeth the streams that they trickle not, that the thing that is hid might be brought forth to light. They can go out and get it. The water's been coming in that shaft, we're going to dry it up. And in the midst of this, he says in verse 5, For as for the earth, out of it cometh what? Well, that just kind of messed up the imagery, didn't it? Now we're talking about farming. Next verse doesn't talk about farming. The verse leading up to it didn't talk about farming. I don't think he's talking about farming. Then what out of it cometh bread, and underneath it is turned up as it were by fire. They're going to sell their stones. What will they eat? Yes, bread. They're prosperous. I mean, what's it good to have a meal? I mean, have money and you're going to starve to death. Out of the earth, there's my produce. I didn't grow barley. I grew bread, and it's like a fire that's boiling, trying to bring forth those things, bring them up, and that's going to be how prosperous they are. To me, that makes sense. He's not talking about farmers now. I think he's still talking about that desire. Put yourself in danger. Go to dark places that no bird's ever gone. To find things that the falcon's eye can't see. And to do all you can in order to get that treasure. And then he spends the next part of the chapter. Money can't buy what? You can't buy wisdom. And you don't find it in the earth. And you don't find it in the land of the living. And so he asked the question 12, where shall wisdom be found? Ask the falcon. He got keen eyes. Ask the men that go to places that are so dark that nobody would ever go. They probably have been around it. And that's the point. He's not there. Men knoweth not the price thereof. I know what the price of sapphire is, onyx stones and gold, pure gold. We got that down. And we're making bread. We're making money so we can eat bread. The deep saith, it's not in me. And the sea saith, it's not with me. It cannot be gotten for gold, neither shall silver be weighed or the price thereof. It cannot be valued with the gold of Ophir, with the precious onyx or the sapphire. Gold and glass cannot equal it, neither shall it be exchanged for jewels of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or crystal. Yea, the price of the wisdom is above rubies. He just says, money can't get it. It's not found here. It's not found there. And so he comes back at it. Verse 20, whence then cometh wisdom? Now, why didn't he, we live in a time, this takes too much time and too much thought. We got verse 18, where shall it be found? And he asks the question again, whence cometh wisdom? Let's cut to the chase, Job. I'm getting a little bored with having to read so much. And the point is, he wants you to think about it. He wants you to go on your journey. And he brings all these things out. And he's already laid down how much energy you used to buy silver and gold. But what good would it do now for wisdom? And that's for a fact. And God wants us to meditate on the scriptures. He wants to feel the impact of words. And then we can feel what Job feels. But if we pass over this, that's over and over and over. It's not there, it's not there, not there. I got all these stones and all those. The topaz of Ethiopia. I'm living in Pasadena. No. So you have to really desire to want to know the mind of God and how his word is there for us to read and to meditate upon. But it's not to be done with dryness that says, it doesn't mean much to me. He keeps asking the same question. And I think we need to take time when we read, especially the poetry. He drives home. I can't find it anywhere. And if I had it, it wouldn't buy it. So he's getting this closer. He's not going to do it yet. Seeing he hid it from the eyes of all the living and kept close from the birds of the heavens, like that falcon. Now, birds don't know it, but they know a lot of keen things they can see. All this works together to drive home the point. Destruction and death. Abaddon, destruction, death. What did they say? What did they say? You never heard a rumor? Come on, tell me. It's been a rumor. And what do you think the rumor's right? Death and destruction? God's part of that. And what's the next verse say? God understandeth the way thereof, and he knoweth the place thereof, for he looketh to the ends of the earth. God, is it you or not? Tell me. What did he just do? He told you. I know where it is, I know where it's found. To make a weight for the wind, yea, he meteth out the waters by measure. When he hath made a decree for the rain and the way for the lightning and the thunder. Then did he not see it and declare it? He established it, yea, and searched it out. What's he saying? I know. I see. You find it in me without telling us directly. But you've been anticipating it. Job's been leading you there by inspiration. God reacts in a way that, he really doesn't say it until it's a command of God, an express statement of fact. I can't believe it. But the inference is strong there, the point that he has it, so now he declares what wisdom is. And we ask the question, elusive is wisdom, where does one find it? Or where does it come from? And that indeed is God. And then the next question, what is true wisdom? Now you can tell me what true wisdom is. There's no implication at all. It's a fact that this God who knows where it is, it just told you. It's no longer a rumor, I'm telling you. Death and destruction has a rumor because I am over death and destruction. But I'm also over giving wisdom. So what is true wisdom? Great passage to memorize.
Reverential fear of God.
That's right.
Understanding which comes through that.
That's right. But what if I don't do anything about it? Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil is what? Understanding. I can know it, I can read it, I can talk about it, but if I don't do it, I'm not wise. God puts it on the basis that a reverence for God, and when he speaks in in the 19th Psalm about various aspects of the Word, one of the Ten Commandment law. One of them is the fear of the Lord. Thou shalt fear the Lord. Is that 10 commandments? But the whole commandments, it was the fear of the Lord. Why? Because when I read that, I have to reverence God because I'm going to reverence His Word, but I've got to put it into practice, and that's the person of understanding. Reverencing God and departing from evil is understanding. Now, that's Job saying that because that's what he did in his life. He reverenced God, he departed from evil. Easy for you to say, Job. Is that your definition? That's his, because it's godly one. And he's writing this with a proving characteristic of God, because that's we're to fear God and keep His commandments. There's a great book for you. Solomon just takes you down one dead end about what makes life meaningful. What's our purpose? Just go one dead end to another, and the 12 chapters. Oh, it's just I think Ecclesiastes is one of a person that is so despondent and so has a horrible look at life. And vanity is after vanity. Why? He said, you don't find it here, you don't find it there. He takes us down every road that you and I think I'd be happy if I were rich. I think I'd be happy if I had a few degrees under my belt. I think I'd be happy if I had all the things that money can buy. I don't want to be a miser. I'd like to spend it. And Ecclesiastes would approve that. And he takes you all and then at the end, all's been said, I guess so. I'll just take Ecclesiastes 12:13, and that's where I'm going to spend my time, and I won't have to worry about these other passages. You miss out on the beautiful reading and study and meditate upon the Word of God, and then really having the foundation by which to understand it. Because people have come along and said, this is the route I need to go. This is the way of being prosperous. Well, you could be the richest man and the wisest man. You're going to die just like a fool. I need to know that. No, I didn't. So what did he cut the chase to? Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. That's just about what we got here. I will depart from evil, and I will keep His commandments. And I don't need a bunch of Job, and I don't need a bunch of Ecclesiastes. I got it down now. And preacher, don't you preach from the Old Testament. We don't need that anymore. And I hope we never approach the Bible that way. That God's Word, even Paul would spend chapter 10 talking about the Old Testament to New Testament Christians. So this is a warning to us. And the whole point, because I've had people say, you ought not preach from the Old Testament at all. It's the old law. But do we understand why Paul did that in 1 Corinthians 10? That he wasn't laying down this is the law that we ought to follow, the old law, to the New Testament of Christians. Why does he spend all that time? They were baptized in the sea and into Moses and all that. And why is that? Because they were the people of God. They thought, since we're Jewish people by the flesh, we're the people of God and we could never fall. And that's the point. What did they do time and time again? God punished them. They fell. Let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. That's the purpose for those examples. Wasn't to teach you, you're under the old law, so we don't want to study about that. But it's showing that here were God's people that thought they were God's people. And Jesus would make them mad when who was the leper that got healed? He wasn't a Jew. Famine came upon a widow who helped him. Prophet helped Lady of Sidon. That wasn't a Jew. They get mad because, see, those are the Jewish people, and they needed to understand that now my people are those who fear me, keep my commandments, and turn away from evil. So it's a great chapter. But there's a lot of direction he's taking. There's a little journey he's taking you. And when you take that journey, you will not forget it. You will not forget the fact of where you're going to find it around here. And we're so good about finding things, but we can't find wisdom with men. Yes, sir.
Well, while it is true we're not under the Old Testament law, which is written in Romans 16:4, whatever things were written before was written for our learning, that we through the faces and company of Scripture might have hope. So they're only halfway correct.
Right. That's usually error is halfway correct. That's right.
But we can learn a lot of good lessons.
Sure. That's why we read through the Bible in a year, don't we? All right? Let's take this one apart. What comprised the good old days in Job's reflections in chapter 29? And the first one we look at is his past blessings. Okay, take a little journey with me. The first 6 verses talk about his past blessings. Oh, thou wert as in the months of old. You see why I said the good old days? Oh, he longed for this. When his lamp shined upon my head. This is God. And by his light I walked through darkness. I was in the ripeness of my days. The autumn of my days, not the winter, the autumn. I am full grown, great maturity, probably at my prime. And in the ripeness of my days, when the friendship of God was my what? Friendship of God was his what? Canopy, tent, protection. I get that picture. Saw a commercial the other day where if you didn't have your tent, you're out. I forgot what they're advertising. Probably, I don't think it was tents, but it's the idea that if you did not have that tent, that bear that's out there, that wolf that's out there eating everything around you might want to zip up that tent. It's nice to have a protective place, a tent. And so that's my protective place. It's in my friendship. And when his lamp shined upon my head, by his light I walked through darkness. I was in the ripeness of my days. The friendship of God was my tent. When the Almighty was yet with me, and my children were about me. Oh, would you be thinking about those days? Again, was Almighty against him? He was no longer with him. That's where Job is missing it. But he's against me now because of the suffering that he allows me to have. My children were about me. I don't have them anymore. Now, what does he mean by this? And this you'll have to know Deuteronomy for this, and we've studied Deuteronomy. But it says, when my steps were washed with butter, and the rock poured me out streams of oil. What does that mean? What good old days was that?
Connotation of richness.
Yes.
Like the land of milk and honey. Oil is very much a necessity, but it showed the richness of the land.
Yes, the wish of the land, and he was being blessed by it. He was stepping in, blessing from God, and the oil and all of that was coming out of the abundance of the land. And that's just a pretty picture of how he describes that. When I went forth to the gate of the city, when I prepared my seat in the street, the young men saw me. So those first 6 verses is that God was allowing me to prosper. I had my children. I had the land was productive. And do you blame him of looking back at those days with fondness? No, and I don't think God does. We have our memories. And what a change that has been. And he recognizes that. He's not only dealing with that. What does he say about his past honor? What happens when he sets forth at a gate in the city, and I prepared my seat in the street as it's entering into the city? That's where the elders would sit, make judgments. What honor did he receive? The young men saw me, and what did they do? That doesn't sound like honor. I'm not worthy to be in your presence. And what did the old men do? He rose up and stood. They honored the man. The young people, I don't have anything to add to this man. And they hide. I don't want to be speaking something wrong in front of that man. He's that important. The princes refrain from talking. Now we're getting into power and authority with what men would recognize as being royalty. The princes refrain from talking and laid their hand on their mouth because I have nothing to say worth listening to. That man doesn't want to be listening to me. I will listen to him. Honor. The voice of the nobles was hushed, and their tongue cleaved to the roof of their mouth. I have nothing to add to this conversation. I'm just going to listen to Job. For when the ear heard me, the ear blessed me. When the eye saw me, it gave witness unto me. That's the picture of honor. Men's honor, but it's honor. What about his good deeds in chapter 29? What does he say next in verse 12? Did he take care of the poor? Good deeds. So we're getting into that frame of thought. I delivered the poor that cried, the fatherless also that had none to help them. The blessing of him that was ready to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, clothed in the justice was a robe. As I diadem, I was eyes to the blind, my feet was to the lame. I could do things where people couldn't walk and help them across the street and they can't see, that sort of thing. I was a father to the needy, and the cause of him that I knew not. I did it to strangers. I stretched out help with them. And I break the jaws of the injustice and pluck the prey out of his teeth. So all the deeds he did for people he didn't know, for those who were helpless, fatherless, widows, bringing them joy, bringing them the need that they had, he paints that picture. What's it about? Well, I've had past blessings from God. I have past honor. And of course, this is hitting at them that said, you didn't even care for the people. He's defending himself. A godly man doesn't have to defend himself. Paul did. You read a whole 2 Corinthians. It's about his defense of himself. A whole book. But he's bringing forth that you haven't helped me, friends, because what you said about me is not true. What are his hopes? I think that's next. Yes, the hopes that he has. Verses 18 through 25. Instead of me reading it, you tell me put it into thought what he's hoping for and what he expects, really. Got any ideas? Okay. Long life. And would it be a productive, easy life? Prosperous life? Some have thought that he spoke about the bird in antiquity called the phoenix. Because he says, I said I shall die in my nest. You think you're a bird? Yeah, in the imagery, I will die in my nest. I shall multiply my days as the sand. And so some have looked upon that, well, it's a bird, but it's going to be at ease. Its roots going to spread out to the waters. The dew lieth all night upon my branch. He's going to live long life, prosperous, so forth. My glory is fresh to me. My bow is renewed in my hand. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be able to be victorious against the enemies that might come my way. And so it's all of the things he's speaking about here is his days are going to be prosperous. That's what he looks forward to. Now remember, he's suffering. And this is a testimony as he's given his speech. He still has hope of seeing God, maybe not in the flesh, but he'll see him without the flesh. He has that confidence that would do that. We saw that in chapter 19. And this gives you what his thoughts were. And I don't think he's been hypocritical in this at all. But what about his influence? Unto me men give ear, and waited and kept silence for my counsel. After my words they spake, and again, and my speech distilled upon them. They waited for me as for the rain. They opened their mouth wide for their latter rain. I smiled on them when they had no confidence, and the light of my countenance they cast not down. I chose out their way and sat as chief. I dwelt as a king who has the mastermind of his army, and one that comforteth the mourners. I mean, that's a man that's essential. And that's the part of his influence. He'll be helping the people who mourn. He's going to be as a king, wise in how to direct things, and be prosperous and strong. He's not defeated. He still has it. He has his integrity about him, and that becomes important as well. Any comments on that? I know our time is short, but let's get into chapter 30. 4 main reasons for Job's present suffering. Now, he's come with all the good stuff, but he's dealing with reality. And now he tells us a little bit about the feeling of why he's suffering. And notice in verse verse 1 through 8. See if you could just make a statement from all these verses. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I disdain to set with the dogs of my flock. Yea, the strength of their hands it should profit me. Men in whom ripe age is perished. They are gaunt with want and famine. So here are people whose fathers, I didn't want them working for me. And he doesn't have any respect for them. They didn't help him. They plucked saltwort by the bushes. Idea of salty roots. You didn't want to eat that. The roots of the broom are their food. Those are deep like charcoal. You could burn things with it, but you didn't want to eat that. They're driven forth from the midst of men. They cry after them after a thief, so that they dwell in frightful valleys and hope of the earth and the rocks. Among the bushes they bray, under the nettles they are gathered together. They are children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were scourged out of the land. And they've got me in derision. I'm beneath them. That hurts. To me, that's Job's heart. He had no regard for them. But the fathers, he didn't want them working for him. The children, they have Job in derision. And he speaks about the character that they had. And yet, they're looking down on me. They're looking down on me. That hurts. Now, you may not like Job at this point. You may think he's arrogant. But he's just stating the truth that things have changed. Instead of young men hiding because of their respect for me, they have me in derision. And it ought not be that way. It ought not be that way. What happens in verse 9? And now I have become their song. Yea, I'm a byword unto them. They abhor me. They stand aloof from me. They spare not to spit in my face. For it loosed his cord and afflicted me. Maybe the cord of the bowstring, bringing forth pain to them. They cast off the bridle before me. Upon my right hand rise the rabble. They thrust aside my feet. They cast up against me their ways of destruction. They mar my path. Verse 14, as though a wide breach they come in the midst of the ruin, they roll themselves upon me. Terrors are turned upon me. They chase mine honor as the wind, and my welfare is passed away as a cloud. Men that deserve no respect, they're the ones that look down upon him, and then they cause the affliction. They cause the pain that comes upon them. So I'm putting those things together. I've got two things there that are talking about that hurts. That hurts the people. All right? What about 16 through 23? Now my soul is poured out within me. Days of affliction have taken hold of me. In the night season, my bones are pierced in me. He's going through this physical pain. God's great force is my garment disfigured. It bindeth me about as a collar at my coat. It's like we've seen earlier that he's like he took me and threw me down on the ground. And here's my clothing. And my bones are gnawing at me because of his probably lack of being strong in food and so forth, this pain he's going through. But my garment's disfigured. And he has about the collar of my coat. He cast me into the mire. Now become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee, and thou dost not what? So he's talking to God. I cry unto thee, and you don't answer me. That's been his problem. I stand up, and thou gazest at me. Thou art turned to be cruel to me. With the might of thy hand thou persecutest me. Thou lettest me up to the wind. Thou countest me to ride upon it. It's just drive him away. And thou dissolvest me in the storm. Carry me away, and then thou just dissolved in the storm. Why don't you just carry me away? No, he just pounded him. We're going to completely destroy you. And who's he attributing that to? When his pain, who is he saying that might be because of that? God. That's where he's going to have to repent. And that's the point that he's making in verse 25. And then verses, I just put verses, that's 16 through 20. Then 24 through 31, 24 through 31. He says, we did that. Have we done 4 of them? Well, I guess I did that one, 31. Did you have any others you want to look at? We can look at the last part of this. I feared the great multitude in verse 34, content of families. I kept silence and went not out the door. Oh, that I had one to hear me. Same idea, God's not listening. Lo, here's my signature, let the Almighty answer me. I mean, he's putting God on trial. And that was a mistake he's making. Surely I would carry it upon my shoulder. If he would answer me, I would bind it up as a crown. I would declare him as the number of my steps, and and as a prince would I go near unto him. I'm ready to defend myself. And if my land crieth out against me, and the furrows therefore weep together, I've eaten the fruits thereof without money, or I've caused the owners thereof to lose their title. If I've done that, let thistles grow instead of wheat, and the cockle which is so bitter instead of barley. If I've done that, then may this happen to me. And we begin to see how that becomes how he looks at things. That's chapter 31. I just went ahead a little bit. But verses 24 through 31, he stretched out this hand, or his calamity, therefore cry for help. He's going to help people. Therefore my heart was turned to mourning, and my pipe and the voice of them that went. Verse 20, I go mourning without the sun. I stand in the assembly and cry for help. And nobody's helping him. And then chapter 31, we're not going to get there, but we kind of went there because I wanted to get the feeling of that. These are things, he goes real high of looking at great things, and then he sees the affliction that I'm going through. And then we'll pick up the chapter 31, the first part of that next time, to say some other specific things. Any comments? He's up here, down here, but that's what happens when you're suffering. And when a godly man is suffering, there's some things he knows to be true, but can you see him crossing the line that he did not understand what God was doing? God wasn't against him. God was trying to instruct him about trusting in him. And see if Elihu, who comes on the scene now when we get through chapter 31, Elihu will come in, and he may get closer than anybody else to the truth of God. See if you agree with that, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So we're coming to the end of this tunnel, okay? Thank you.